Okay, good afternoon, John. How are we?
Good afternoon. I'm very well, and how are you too?
Yeah, I'm doing well by God's grace, really well. Lovely to have you join me once again. Yeah, it was great having you speak to us at the Songhai Past Interns Network at the weekend, and you shared so many great insights, and it's really a privilege to be able to go in a bit deeper actually, and share this with a wider community. Um, But yeah, John, I mean, just to kick us off, of course, we know ourselves very well. It's been a good few years. But for the benefit of those that aren't so familiar with you and the work that you do, would you like to just give an overview of all the different things that you are working on at the moment?
All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm grateful to you for this chance to engage with a wider audience and also to share lessons from my life with a lot of other people. First of all, I just want to let people understand where I come from, my background, so that people can put a context to the conversation. So currently, there are three major things that drives me on a daily basis. One is that I run a medical facility or medical clinic, which is based in Koforidua in Ghana. Now, this is a medical facility that my late dad or my dad of blessed memory, who was a medical doctor, established in 1981. He passed on to glory in 2018, and I assumed leadership and management and ownership of the clinic. So since 2018, I have been very much involved in running this medical clinic. So that's one of the things that I do. The other thing I do is that I'm also very passionate about human capital development. And I've set up an organization called the ALE Consult that provides training, capacity building, skills enhancement for people, individuals, professionals, and organizations. So that is the ALE Consult. And I've been running the ALE Consult since 2017. And then I'm also very passionate about young people. I believe that Africa has a lot of potential, and that potential is tied up not in our minerals and our natural resources, but in our human resources. So I have been working over the years to find ways that I can help young people build themselves, build their relevant competencies that will allow them to be able to play a very intricate part in the development and growth of Africa. Most of the time, we say that Africa belongs to the young people and the generation that is available now. But the truth of the matter is that nobody will open that door for us unless we prove that as young people, we are capable, we are able, we are competent, and we are able to deliver. So, the third thing that I commit myself to doing over the past few years is to empower young people, give them that leverage, that platform, that skills they need in order for them to be able to sit at the table of decision making and to be able to contribute to conversations that will shape the individual nations that will come from and then Africa as a whole. So these are the three main things or the three main hats that I wear. For the clinic, I didn't start the clinic, second generational entrepreneurship. But for the early consult and then the African Chamber for Youth Development, these are my own personal initiatives that I started. So these are the three things that drives me. And in the course of the conversation, I'll be making references to any of these three just to drive home a point or to establish a particular point.
Thank you so much, John. That's amazing work you're doing. The fact that you have inherited essentially the clinic from your father. So, that's a huge responsibility. And of course, we understand the healthcare sector in Ghana. There's a lot of work to do, and it plays a really key role. And it's very interesting how you're, not in Accra, you're in Koforidua. So it'd be really good to hear more about the healthcare dynamic from that perspective. But and then, of course, your work in terms of the consultancy that you've set up, the chamber, and then also the youth development work that you're so very much passionate about. These are really, really pivotal areas for Ghana and for the future of the continent. We hear the statistics that in 20, 30 years, 1 in 4 people on the globe will be African, and our youth, our young people are playing and will play an even greater role going forward. But just thinking about how you structure your day, I would like to just hear a little bit more about that, because these are, big areas, great responsibilities you have. Could you just give us a top level view as to how you think about structuring your day to manage all these different projects and commitments that you do have?
Okay, great. So initially, especially in the early years of 2018, I was really struggling to keep all these things going because I was just focusing on the early consult and then the African Chamber for Youth Development. And they are all in the same geographical area, all based in Accra. So I didn't have much traveling to do. But when the clinic came or was added to what it is that I was doing, I had to make a decision as to how I would, going forward, structure my day, structure my week for that matter, that will allow me to be as productive as possible. So what I decided to do was that out of the 7 days, I was going to devote 3 days of it to work in the clinic, which is based in Koforidua, about 1.5 hours journey from Accra, where I live and where my family is. So what I do is that on a weekly basis, I set apart 3 days to physically come into Koforidua and then work from the clinic, have my meetings, high-powered profile meetings, meet with some of the clients, understand what is going on. Because you see, one very important thing I've learned over the past 5 years is the fact that if you're an entrepreneur, whether a second generational or first generational entrepreneur, you need to be immersed in the business. You need to understand the business. And for the information of our people listening to us, I'm not a medical doctor. And that in itself poses a great disincentive, or that poses a negative, approach to leadership, because then people will expect that if you're running a medical center, you should be a medical person and all that. But I have come to understand that it is not always the case that to run a medical facility, you need a medical doctor to run. In fact, that's what my dad was doing for the past 40, 45 years. He was a doctor and was managing and running the facility. But I have taken over. I am not a medical doctor. But one of the things that has helped me over the years is for me to directly get involved in the business. So, for example, if I'm here working from the clinic, I'm interacting with my doctors, I'm interacting with my pharmacists, I'm interacting with the lab people. We are going for meetings, management meetings, interacting with our head of nursing and all that. So that gives me a thorough overview of what exactly goes on in the medical fraternity or in the medical business, so that I'm able to make very good decisions and I'm able to make the relevant choices. So what I do usually Mondays, I leave Accra very early in the morning, maybe by 4 a.m. I set off from Accra so that by 6 a.m. I am here at the clinic. So from 6 in the morning, I'm here at the clinic and I stay usually Mondays, Tuesdays, and then Wednesdays after work has closed at the clinic, I round up my very final meeting with management and then I head to Accra Wednesday evening. So by Wednesday evening, latest by 10 p.m., I am back to Accra. I get to see my family. I get some rest. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I devote that time to the early consult and then to the African Chamber for Youth Development. So most of my speaking engagement, most of my training engagement, I specifically push it to Thursdays, Fridays, and over the weekend to allow me to be there in person, to be able to be part of those meetings. Now, the good thing is that I have been able to expand the number of consultants I work with at the early consult. So most of the time, it is not myself actually doing the training, but I may do the administrative management, engagement, get the contracts, and then depending on the area of specialization, I bring on board an external consultant who works with the fraternity to also come in to deliver the training. So that is what it has been over the past 5 years. I spent 3 days physically in Koforidua, and then the rest of the days I spend in Accra managing the early consult, the African Chamber for Youth Development, and then spending time with my family as well. Now, thanks to technology, thanks to the internet, thanks to the phone, there are some meetings I can actually get to participate in virtually. So I'm meeting today. I'm here in Koforidua, and you are all the way in London in the United Kingdom, but we're having a very productive, fruitful meeting, and that is thanks to the power of technology. So I leverage a lot on technology. There are some meetings I may not be able to physically participate in, but I'm able to join via the internet, via technology, and still we're able to make progress and we're able to make the headway. But in terms of my physical schedules, usually 3 days out of the week I go to Koforidua, and then the rest of the days I spend in Accra or any other place that the business will take me to.
Mhm. You're running a tight ship there, John. I applaud you greatly. I mean, what kind of a leader does one have to be to juggle the way that you do? And the businesses are not the same. And we're talking about a healthcare facility. As you say, you're not medically trained, but you see the benefit of coming in with the lens that you have. You have a strong background in communications and so forth. You know, the chamber and the consultancy, it's also another skill set. The work you do with the youth is also another skill set. So what sort of leadership traits do you think are necessary, or have you had to acquire to be able to manage the portfolios that you have in what I can only describe as a really cool and calm and collected way? How do you do it?
Great. That's a very good question. So the first thing is that these things that I do, you need to be a leader who's one willing to learn. I think that's very important. Unfortunately, especially in this part of our world, the perception is that if you're a leader, you know everything on your own, or you have everything up there in your head. So you don't need to learn because then you are the owner of the business, you are the CEO, you are the person that calls the final shot. But I've learned over the years that one very important trait that is allowing me to be successful where I find myself is that I am willing to learn, especially the medical clinic that I'm running. I had to spend time to understand the business. I think that that's very important. So, for example, you may run a bakery. You may think that, oh, I don't know how to bake bread, but therefore I cannot run a bakery. No, you can run a bakery. What you need to do is to understand the processes involved in the bakery business. You need to understand what comes first, what goes second, how does it all mix up together, and how do you get bread at the end of the day. You need to understand and you need to learn. And to do that, you have to be on the field to be able to learn some of these things. You may not be the technical person missing the dough or missing the corn and the flour, but you are watching, you are observing, you are learning. So, for example, if your bakery comes to say that we need about 10,000 bags of flour a day, you are able to relate because then you've been there before. You have seen people actually open the bags of flour and mix it up, and you're able to see that, well, that is true, that is a fact, that will work. If they tell you that we need about 10 gallons of butter or 10 buckets of butter to be able to get this type of bread and all that. Even though you're not an expert at baking bread, you have been there, you are working with the people and you understand. So I think that one of the most important traits that would be very helpful to be able to juggle all these things that I'm doing is that you should be willing to learn. And that's one thing that has helped me a lot. When I'm in meeting with my doctors, when I'm in a meeting with my nurses, when I'm in a meeting with my pharmacists, when I'm in a meeting with all these people, I keep quiet and I learn because what they are saying I may not have any idea about, but if I put my mind to it, I may get a very basic understanding that will allow me to be able to contribute to the conversation or contribute to the discussion. So I think that the number one trait that will be very helpful for anybody that may want to juggle between a number of fields is that you should be willing and ready to learn. The second thing too is that I make use of the power of the mastermind. What it means is that I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not a lab person, but I have recruited people that have the competence and the capability to be able to handle all these technical positions. So when it comes to making a decision that is in regards to the medical or the doctor's line of thinking, when it has to do with the pharmaceutical line of thinking, when it has to do with the lab kind of thinking, I am not the one calling the shot. What I do is that I give my final consent or I give my final validation to that decision, and then it becomes something that we can work with. So I work with a team of very competent people. And I think that that is very, very important. Most of the time, people would rather prefer that they are the most competent and then they are the only people with the eyes to see in the room. And that's where the problem starts coming in. I believe in empowering the people around me, the people that help me to make the decision, the people that help me to run the business. So if I'm recruiting a medical doctor, I'm recruiting a medical doctor who's capable and competent. If I'm recruiting a lab person, I'm recruiting somebody who's competent. It may mean a lot of money because you have to pay for premium, but I'm willing to pay for premium to get the best people because then I am assured that the decisions and the choices that we're making, it is going to make sense at the end of the day. So the second thing is that you need to get around competent people to be able to do the job. I tell my fellow leaders and young CEOs all the time that if you surround yourself with substandard people, you'll have to be doing the work all over again by yourself. And that is double the waste of the time, because you are wasting people's time, and your time that you need to commit to strategic engagement and thinking, you are doing the nitty-gritties on the ground, and that cannot help you make progress at all, or if anything, significant progress. So what I say secondly is that you need to surround yourself with committed people, competent people, people that are knowledgeable, who can actually do the work. The third thing that has been very helpful to me is that I believe in the power of teamwork. So when I go to the field, for example, if I'm at the clinic, if somebody doesn't tell you that this is the managing director or the CEO, you may never notice it, because I am always on the ground. I am at the OPD. I'm engaging with clients. I'm trying to explain certain policies to clients. I am engaging with the patients that come. And I'm showing care and concern, because you see, for the medical field, it's not just about giving the person paracetamol or chloroquine and then they solve the problem. You need to be reassuring, and you need to give that kind of confidence to the clients that come to you. So I believe that the third thing you need to become a successful leader in juggling between many other things you do is, first of all, to be a down-to-earth person who is able to work together in a team, or work together with a team. Teamwork is very important. If you don't work together in a team, it becomes very difficult for you to get the work done. So I think that that's a third trait that I've adapted, that I'm working with, that is helping me. Being able to work together with a team, where praises is due. I don't take all the praises alone. I make sure that the people that contribute to that decision are also part of the praise. When there's blame to be taken, since I am the ultimate person that calls the final shot, I take most of the blame. But in doing that, I ensure that the relevant parties that can help solve the problem are on board in helping us find ways of addressing the particular issues and matters that we have. So these are the top three things. One, you should be willing to learn, ready and willing to learn. Number two, you should also be that kind of leader that believes in encircling around you, or putting around you, or gathering around you fellow competent leaders to help you do the job. And then number three, you should appreciate the power of teamwork, and should be ready and willing to be on the ground, be a down-to-earth person, be a humble person that would allow you to be able to work together with your team. So these are my top three traits that I think can be very helpful in this role.
Thank you so much, John. That's brilliant. Really, really well summarized. And actually, you said the key word for me, because as you were talking, I was thinking, this speaks to it speaks of a person who is humble, because you need humility to be able to number one, admit that you don't know everything. And I think that has been something that perhaps is not so common culturally, and especially when, given the fact that you have inherited a business that your father ran very well for 30 or 40 odd years, and obviously you've come in at the most senior level, but also young comparatively to your predecessor. So already I could imagine that the naysayers would say, well, you're young, or in Ghana you say small boy coming to lead this organization. But being humble but yet self-assured, knowing what you add, what you bring, I think is clearly very important. But then also you're mentioning the fact that, there needs to be competence around you, because if not, then you're doing double, if not triple the work. And, I often hear people talk about, or leaders talk about, having those around you being even better than the CEO, because that's just what makes for a stronger and more sustainable team. And then, the third element, which is, rolling your sleeves up, being a man of the people, and being, integral in creating an atmosphere, a collegiate atmosphere where people feel, that they are really part of a team. But these aren't things that are simple to, then they're not overnight things, I don't think. I feel that, creating that kind of an ambience where people feel at ease to, even correct the CEO, or to say to the CEO that actually, no, this is not the way to do it. I don't recognize it as something that is culturally, in the Ghanaian context, the norm. The way that we are brought up as Ghanaians is to, the Opanyi Kasa, the older one is the one who leads, and if you're the younger, you learn from your elders, which of course is it's respectful, and there's a lot of wisdom in that. But when it comes to the corporate setting where we're not talking about age, we're talking about delivery, how have you been able to strike the balance between that, the cultural dimension and what those expectations require, and what is also required of you as a leader for a business that you want to see grow? How do you reconcile the two?
All right, very very good observation and a very good question. And what I've done, so three things. The first thing I'll talk about is harnessing the power of emotional intelligence. I think that that's extremely important. More often than not, people are consumed only about people's natural intelligence, their knowledge, and their competence, and they forget that there's an emotional part to every decision that you make. And as much as people want to be rational, people want to be logical, there's always an emotional element that you cannot downplay or you cannot underestimate. One of the things that has been helpful to me is that I have been able to understand the power of emotional intelligence, and I've been able to learn how to use the power of emotional intelligence to be able to get the team rallied around a specific goal and a common goal for that matter. So I think that we need to understand the power of emotional intelligence. It's one of the traits that is very helpful, especially in this very precarious situation where you have people that are far older than you are, people that are far more technically competent than you are, and people that have a lot of experience that you may not necessarily have, maybe by virtue of age or by virtue of where you have spent a greater part of your working life. So for me, for example, I leverage strongly on the power of emotional intelligence. I try to understand the people I'm working with. I try to understand their emotions. I try to understand how their emotions affect the work they do at the end of the day. Because look, no matter how competent a person is, if the person is emotionally unstable, it is difficult for the person to be 100% productive. So that emotional element, I am very careful. I pay attention to. And that helps me to be able to sink into the cultural context of learning how to speak with respect to the people that I work with. The people may be far older than I am, they may be more technically competent than I am, but it is about how you speak to the person. You see, most of the time, the understanding is that if you're a leader, you should be very harsh, you should be able to speak down at people, you should be able to intimidate people for them to know that you are the person that signs the check at the end of the day. But I take a reverse approach to that. I think that in as much as that I am the leader and I have the final say, it's important in the manner in which I communicate with the team to give them respect, to show them that I respect their opinions, I respect their thoughts, I respect what it is they bring to the table, but I may have a different opinion. And I'm willing to explain my opinion for the person to understand. Because you see, when you are able to engage on that level and you're able to emotionally connect with the people, it is easier for you to be able to lead, because then people will have to, or people will come to understand that, well, he doesn't want it evil or he doesn't want it bad. It is for the good of all of us. That is why this decision has been taken or this choice has been made. So I believe in learning and mastering the power of emotional intelligence. Sometimes I mirror the emotions of the people I work with. If I come to work and I realize that someone is extremely sad, because I study people very well, so I get to know that this person is in a good mood, that person is in a bad mood. Sometimes just asking, "Oh, you don't look all okay today. Is there anything I can do to help?" That alone is a master key that unlocks the person's defenses, and then the person then begins to know that you care. Because it is said that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. All right. So I think that the power of emotional intelligence is very important and very critical, especially in this modern time that it appears that technology is swallowing whatever we are doing, and people are lost when it comes to machines and artificial intelligence and all that. There's always room and way for emotional connectivity. And that's one thing I'll talk about: emotional intelligence. Number two, I also make it a point to show the people I work with that I'm not in competition with them. I am not in any way trying to undermine anybody to get ahead of anybody. because that's another important part, especially when you work with people that are far older than you are and people that are far more technically more competent than you are. You don't have to go in like an aggressor trying to prove a point to them, because what point do you have to prove? You don't know more than the medical doctor and the consulting. I'm not a medical doctor. If this is the diagnosis, I cannot challenge the person's diagnosis. But the point is that if you let the people you're working with understand that you are not in competition with them, you don't want their position, you don't want to take their position away from them. Whatever you are doing is to augment, to improve, and to facilitate whatever they are doing. People then take it lightly, or people then open up to you more, and they're able to work better with you. So that's the second approach I take. I'm not in competition with anybody I'm working with. I am not going to take your position away from you or anything of the sort. It's just for the people to understand that whatever I'm bringing on board is to improve what it is we are doing. Because you see, job security is critical. The moment anybody, no matter how competent and qualified the person is, when the person feels threatened when it comes to job security, then the person will pose a resistance to you, and then it becomes difficult. But if you want to take away what puts bread on my table, I am going to be as aggressive as I can be. So one of the second strategy I adapt is to let people understand that I'm not in any competition with you. I'm not competing with you. I'm not challenging the knowledge or the competence you have. I'm just trying to understand what you are doing, and I'm trying to suggest to you better ways of doing it to be able to make more impact, and at the end of the day, improve our productivity as a group. And the third thing that I do, which is very helpful, is that I learn to take feedback from the people I work with. That's very important. There are leaders who think that they are 100% correct all the time. They don't take feedback from people. When you go into meetings with such leaders, they don't even give you the opportunity to talk. But I take a reverse approach to that. I believe in taking feedback from the people I'm working with. So when somebody comes to tell me that, oh, John, I think that this and this and that shouldn't have been done that way, I'm not going to challenge, or I'm not going to enter into an argument with you to prove a point to you. I'll listen to your point of view, listen to where you're coming from, and where there are lessons I have to pick, I would humbly accept or eat their pie, and then take up those lessons and apply in my next decision or in my next choice. So I think that that's also important. There should be a deliberate mechanism to take feedback from the people you are working with. Because sometimes as a leader, you may be so consumed with the person that sometimes you may go overboard. But even in those instances, when you get feedback, constructive feedback from the people you work with, you should take those feedback, and then you should be able to do the best out of it. So what happens is that, one, when the people I'm working with know that I am operating with a very high level of emotional intelligence. Two, if they are able to understand that I'm not in competition with them, I'm not taking away their position, their jobs are secured. And then number three, if I take feedback from them and apply the feedback they give me, then they understand that, oh, Mr. Appiah wants the best for us. John wants the best for us as an organization. So we're not going to give him a hard time. We're not going to technically make things difficult or cumbersome for him, but we're also going to cooperate as much as possible to ensure the work is done. So these are my three strategies I've adapted over the years, and they have been very helpful to me.
John, I feel like I'm in a business school right now, because all that you're sharing is extremely valuable. I always knew you were highly reflective. This is just emphasizing it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sure that arriving at this point has been through maybe trial and error, and seeing how other methods didn't work. But as you say, you've come to this conclusion because it has served you well. And I wish you all the very best with that. It's really very compelling. Thinking about the fact that you work a lot with young people, and now on the continent there's so much dynamism around the startup community, young people doing things on their own, starting up their own businesses and so forth. What words of wisdom would you have for an entrepreneur on the continent that is starting out? I feel that there's a lot that you've already shared, but from your own experiences, what would be, maybe some do's and don'ts for them as they're embarking on their entrepreneurship journey? Are there any?
Okay. So the first thing I'll talk about, especially leveraging on my experience running the ALE Consult and the African Chamber for Youth Development, and working in Africa, working in Ghana and some other African countries as well. Honestly, it's not easy. It is not easy. Whoever promises you that entrepreneurship is like the easiest thing you can ever do, it's obviously not speaking the truth to you. Because you have very strong opposition. You may have a lot of challenges that may be as a result of the environment you find yourself in. There may be a lot of restrictions and a lot of problems, So people who want to go on that journey should have that at the back of their mind. But even before I go into those details, there's something I've said somewhere. I know it's very controversial, but I may want to say it here again just for the purposes of this conversation. I think that unfortunately we are placing too much premium and emphasis on entrepreneurship as the only way out. And it is becoming increasingly clear because a lot of people who are not even cut out for entrepreneurship are going into entrepreneurship because the continent is making a lot of conversation about we need entrepreneurs, we want entrepreneurs, we need entrepreneurs, we want entrepreneurs. But the truth is that not all of us will succeed as entrepreneurs. And there's absolutely nothing wrong if you don't ever become an entrepreneur. But working for people, working for organizations, working for systems, it doesn't in any way restrict you from making impact or contributing to the conversation. So I think that we need to establish that because you see, most of the time, the young graduates I interact with, they are all compelled to go into entrepreneurship because it appears that everybody's an entrepreneur. Hey, and I'm a CEO, and I'm a CEO, I'm a managing director, I'm this. And you ask the person, what exactly are you doing? And the person is just beating about the bush. So I think that first of all, not all of us can go into entrepreneurship. What it means is that for those of us that can still apply for jobs, go through rigorous screening processes, and get good jobs to do, we should not rule that option out. We should continue to give the very best in that area as well, because that's also part of contributing to the conversation. I've actually met entrepreneurs who have resigned from entrepreneurship and they are now into full stream work, working for another person or working for another company. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. And sometimes I say this to people and they think that I'm joking. Look, Kisi, I'm trying very hard to manage all that I'm doing. But as I sit here with you, if Songhai gives me an offer, for example, that John, we're willing to pay you £10,000 if you become our corporate strategy manager or director for Europe and Africa and all that. I'm going to say, oh, Kisi, you know what? I'm a CEO. I don't want to be anything below a CEO. So forget about the offer. Let me manage my Koforidua clinic and Eli consult and African Chamber for Youth Development. No, I'm going to pick up that offer. Why I'm going to pick up that offer beyond the money that will come, it's also the opportunity to grow my network and also grow my competence. All right. And on the back of that, I can dare say that some people that have entered into entrepreneurship is because they have tried everything possible to get a job and they didn't get a job. And the only option left is for them to start something on their own. All right. So let's not continue to praise only entrepreneurs and make it look like it's entrepreneurs that are changing the paradigm in Africa. There are people that are working for corporate organizations and businesses who are also working very hard and they're also contributing to development and contributing to progress. So let's have that at the back of our mind. So back to my point, for those of us who decide to do entrepreneurship, it is extremely difficult. Don't be enchanted by what you see on TV and Tony Elumelo is traveling in business class or has a private jet, or Dangote moves into a meeting and he's going in a convoy, or Ibrahim Mahama of Ghana is in a meeting and you think that he's driving a 4x4 customized car, he has a yacht and all that. So you think that entrepreneurship is about all the flashy lifestyle, going on holidays in the Miami Beach, walking along the River Thames in London and reflecting. Look, my young man, it is more work than you think. In fact, it's only just a small percentage of people that are able to run their businesses. And usually it takes about 10, 20, 15, 30, 40 years to establish a very profitable business that will allow you the opportunity to enjoy the way we see on TV and the way we watch in movies. So I think that for young people that want to embrace entrepreneurship, it is difficult. It comes with a lot of hard work. It comes with a lot of sacrifice. And people should be ready for that. Look, there are times you may just want to give up. I have been there before, and I continue to go there on a daily basis. And people like you keep encouraging me because, look, honestly, sometimes, like John, just hand over your gloves and go and find something to do, or just stay home because it's tough, it's difficult. But we need to persevere. If that's the way we want to go, we need to persevere. So that's number one thing. Number two is that you need to also find a network of like minded young people that are very determined that can keep you going when you don't want to keep going. And that is what sometimes we don't do well, especially in this part of our world. Everybody thinks about himself. Everybody thinks about going solo. There's no collaboration. There's no partnership. And at the end of the day, people are wearing themselves out. And that is affecting the emotional and the mental health of people. So I think that the second strategy to adapt, if you really want to go on this journey of entrepreneurship, is that you need to build around yourself an ecosystem of like-minded entrepreneurs to whom you can go to for advice, you can go to learn from. A lot of young people don't want to learn, but the truth is that you have to learn. It is not everything you find in your MBA class. It is not everything you find in your school, your university, or whatever degree you have. There are things that you actually have to learn from people that have been on the field and that have been able to help. So beyond just building around you an ecosystem of like-minded entrepreneurs, you need to also believe in mentoring and coaching. That's another very important part. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do it all over again. People have done it over and over again and can go to the people and learn from them, learn from their mistakes, and avoid those mistakes. Unfortunately, most of us think that you have to learn by mistakes and go through the pain before you actually pick up the lesson. But we have gone beyond that, in my opinion. You have to learn from people that have made the mistakes, who have broken their legs, and they have learned where not to walk, so that you don't also have to go and walk on that landmine and get it detonated and get your leg amputated before you learn the lesson. You can actually learn from the scars of the people that have gone ahead of you. And maybe the final thing I would say, especially to young people in Africa who want to do entrepreneurship, you should be willing and ready to learn. You should be willing and ready to work on your idea. You may set out with an idea, but over time you may have to refine the idea, especially when you have to survive the first few years as a startup. So don't think that the idea you have is bulletproof and that's the best idea. When you go on the field, you realize that there are things you can add, there are things you can pick up, there are things you can refine, there are things you can fine tune, and then at the end of the day, you can still go out there and still be very successful. So I think that if young people or young entrepreneurs in Africa apply some of the things that I have said, it's going to go a long way to help.
It's really wonderful hearing you, John, because, you know, we speak a similar language, having walked the entrepreneurship journey as well for almost 13 years. There's a lot that you say that I can identify with, not least of all the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are also like-minded, not clones, but people who also have a vision and can also pull you along. But I think it's really important that you have people around you who can help you to keep it real and as you're saying, present to you what the realities are. But that requires a certain level of vulnerability, a certain level of opening up. And again, thinking about the cultural context is not, it's changing. I must say it is changing, and there's much more dialogue happening than, you know, was previously the case. But historically, traditionally, you know, Ghana is not so dissimilar to the UK in terms of we have this saying, like you don't say when things are working out well, you don't say too much. And I think it also goes in the other direction. When things are difficult, you don't necessarily hang your dirty laundry in public, kind of thing. But it's really important for us to have stories and have examples that we can learn from, success stories, failure stories. Maybe that terminology is a little bit difficult to swallow, but at least people who are willing to say, okay, I tried this and it didn't work, and it was for these reasons, so I pivoted, or I did this differently, you know, but having those conversations, and I hope that this is part of that, you know, whereby we get to have conversations which are real, and that people can actually learn from. And certainly when we did some work around the startup ecosystem across the continent, of course, aside from the number one issue of funding, or, you know, getting high level significant amounts of funding, that being a major hurdle for a number of our startups, another thing was the networks, you know, ensuring that startup founders have access to the right sorts of networks. And again, I do feel that on the continent there's much more now than there was historically. There's, you know, you've got your incubators, accelerators, you've got, you know, lots of support organizations that are a bit more conscious now of needing to, support, whether it's with technical skills training and development. And obviously the work you do with the youth is really plugging into that. So I think, yeah, a lot of what you shared is really, really very powerful. And then, yeah, again, the humility thing, being willing to learn, and also having a clear view of the reality vis-a-vis the dream. And the dream is great to have that, and that's often what inspires the initial sort of, okay, let's do this. Who doesn't want to have a lifestyle that is, full of relaxation and charm and all of that? But it takes time. The reality is, it takes time for that to come, I believe. But I know your time is very precious, John. I don't want to steal too much more of it, but I always love to ask this question because it just helps to visualize what your lifestyle looks like. And for anyone who is thinking about balancing as much as you do and being as dynamic as you are, I'd love to know a bit more about what a day in the life of John looks like. You spoke about the three broad areas in which you work, but I also know you're a family person, and you spoke at the weekend about the importance of, embedding fun and rest into the mix. So just give us a little taster of what, a day in the life of John may look like, work and non-work related.
Okay, great. So, especially when I'm in a working gear mode, usually by 4 in the morning, I'm already up from bed. I believe personally that I have to stay in touch with my creator. I need to stay in touch with the God who brought me this far and who actually has a purpose for me. Because I think that He's my source, and I need to connect to my source to draw energy, draw strength, and then be able to draw inspiration to be able to make or do what I am supposed to do. So when I wake up at 4, I spend about 30 minutes or 45 minutes just in conversations with God, reading the Bible and also praying as well, committing my day into the hands of God, and then asking for God to send my help to me, send my daily dose of support because we can't do it all by ourselves. So that's what I do when I wake up first in the morning. Then if I have some spare time, I try and then work out a bit, maybe do some 20 push-ups or 30 push-ups just to get me a bit sweaty to be able to go and take a shower. Or if I have time, maybe stand on the treadmill and then do about 20, 30 minutes. Or if there's even a very good weather, I just go for a brisk walk around the neighborhood, come back and then have my bath. And then by 6 o'clock, that's when the kids start waking up and we need to prepare them for school. I am a hands-on person, not just at work, but even at home as well. So what I can do to help them get ready, either help them brush their teeth, help them take their bath, iron their clothes for them, prepare breakfast for them. I am intricately involved, especially when I'm available and when I'm home, so that when they are done with getting ready for school, the first thing we do is drop them off school, and then my wife goes to work, and then I also continue to work. So that's the morning routine at home. That is when I am home, and then I am working from Accra. But when I'm traveling out of Accra, it's the same. Latest by 4 a.m., I'm up. I go through the usual conversations with God, then do a few brisk exercises, have my bath, and then I leave the house very early when I'm traveling because I believe that I need to be in Koforidua latest by the start of work, which is around 7:30 in the morning. So latest by 5:30, I leave home and then I head for Koforidua. um, Traveling mercies granted, I get to Koforidua maybe around 7 a.m., 7:15, and then I'm able to quickly get into my working gear. And by 7:30, I'm ready to work. So when I'm working from Koforidua, I spend most of my time in the OPD because it's a medical clinic. I spend most of my time in the OPD, welcoming clients as they come in, helping them do their registration, and then helping directing them around. So from the registration or from the information desk, the next point of call is the nurses station. Then you go to a consulting room, you come back, either you go to the lab or you pick up drugs at the pharmacy. I am involved in directing and ensuring that our clients have a seamless, flow of work when they come. And then I'm also at the same time taking feedback from some of the clients, certain things they think we can improve on or we can do better. I'm talking with them and I'm engaging with them. In fact, I have an app on my phone that measures my number of steps. And almost every time that I'm here in Koforidua working, I take no less than 10,000 steps in the working day. So you can just imagine it is up and down, moving around, engaging with our clients, supporting and assisting here and there. And then that's about the majority of my day. But I also make time for certain meetings because sometimes in the course of the work, we get maybe reps from a pharmaceutical company that may want to meet with management to maybe do a presentation to us, or for example, come and discuss with us some few offers that they have. I sit in those meetings. And then there are times too that I have to make decisions with the top management regarding certain things that we're supposed to do that came up in the course of work. So it's not like the usual routine management meeting. You can imagine in the fraternity like the medical business, there are always emergencies and you always have to think on your feet, take decisions as you go along and then all that. So depending on the circumstance, I spend some of my time also in the office, just like I'm doing here with you today. And then there are some external meetings that I cannot be physically present, maybe related to the ALE consult or the African Chamber for Youth Development. I come into the office, which is a bit away from the OPD, so that I can get some me time to be able to do those engagements and then respond to the clients that I have who are not operating from Koforidua. So I do a number of meetings, virtual meetings for my office. And then once that is done, getting to like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock when we're winding up, that's just about the time that the kids are back from home. So sometimes when they get home, the first thing they do is to call me to find out how things are going, and then also check in on them, make sure they are fine, they are okay. And then by 6:37, my wife would have closed and would have also arrived at home. So I place a call through to her, especially when I'm here in Koforidua, at least catch up with her, find out how things went for her, how the kids are doing at home, and then probably say our good nights. And then I come back to work because then there are a lot of things that goes on after the job has closed. We need to do reconciliation in the pharmacy. We need to do reconciliation in terms of our accounting and finances, and then we need to also plan for the next day as well. So I'm in the office till about, let's say, 8 o'clock in the evening when I head home finally to get some rest when I go home. And like I said to you Saturday when we had a conversation, rest is very important. You need to make time to rest. You need to make time to eat. You need to make time to stay healthy. Because sometimes I meet clients who come and they are young and the kind of diseases they are plagued with. I'm like, whoa, I don't want this to happen to me. So I need to obviously take my health balancing very important. Make sure I get enough rest, make sure I eat good, and then make sure I'm able to refresh it, freshen up, and get up the following morning ready to work. So typically in the life of John, this is what it is. And then I get a lot of calls as well, as you can imagine, lots of phone calls. I'm also very heavy and active on social media. And as somebody who's mentoring young people, I get lots of questions in my inbox and lots of people trying to find out what they should do and then all that. I try to do all that in one day. It's not easy at all, but I try as much as I can, at least to make sure I make a significant impact upon the people that I interact and engage with. And then obviously, I ensure that my goals for the day is achieved. And then I end my day, of course, with a prayer of thanksgiving to God, and then committing the rest of the night into the hands of God. So that's a typical day in the life of John Appiah.
Well, John, it's very impressive. You found a formula that works, and from the outside looking in, it's even more impressive that you're able to do all of this, because each time you speak with me and we have the opportunity to touch base, it always feels as if you are very present. For someone who is juggling so much, it's very easy to be distracted and to not give the person who's in front of you the time of day, but somehow you're able to do that and make the people who you interact with feel valued. And it's an amazing skill. It's an amazing gift, and I thank you so much for that, for your sharing, for your time, for squeezing me into this really busy schedule that you have. And I wish you continued success and grace through all that you're doing. So God bless you. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. And I need to say you're doing a good job yourself together with your team at Songhai. You are the people putting Africa on the map, and we recognize what you are doing. We are inspired by what you are doing, and we urge you on. Please keep pushing the frontiers. Thank you.
Thank you, John. God bless you. Bye bye now. Bye bye.